Law enforcement with rifles out, people running through malls, loud gunshots going on, of course. That happened at the Cielo Vista Mall in El Paso, Texas, just yesterday, just on Wednesday. And folks went running out. One person ended up dead and 3 others injured. I'm sorry, 2 of the injured were also brought to the University Medical Center in El Paso. They were in critical condition as gunshots rang out in the area, causing more folks to wonder, should I ever leave the house again? When we talk about pandemic, people being held up in their houses, have we talked to how many people are afraid to leave their houses because of things like this? Let's jump down to what, graphic number 3 here, you guys. The traumatizing event that happened down with this. Because this mall then sits next to a Walmart where a shooting in 2019 killed 23 people and left nearly 24 more injured. And last week, the 24-year-old gunman in that event pleaded guilty to 90 federal charges as a part of his plea deal. So we're beginning, I brought that up because we're beginning to see this repetition with victims being re-traumatized in certain situations. We saw it when we did Michigan State earlier this week, because there was multiple students there that had experienced previous school shootings when they were in high school, and another that was in Sandy Hook in elementary school. And I'm sure they weren't the only 2. We're getting so many of these things that people who've survived one and thought, I never thought I would go through one of these. It's now become, when am I gonna go through another one of these? Yeah, it was right near that other one. So, I mean, if I notice things like that, and I'm just this guy out in LA that comments on the news, maybe if I was a governor of a state, I maybe wanna do something about the fact that my residents are not being traumatized like this over and over and over again. Texas has a governor, his name is Greg Abbott. Here's the helpful things that he tweeted. I spoke to Mayor Leeser about the shooting tonight in El Paso. I offered the full support of the state of Texas, including the assistance of the Texas Department of Public Safety and Texas Division of Emergency Management to help the city of El Paso respond to this tragic event. Respond how? Pick up more dead bodies, clean up the blood, maybe have some more press conferences about how everyone needs to calm down and wait for the NRA to give us our next marching orders, what we should do. Because he didn't say much different after all those children were murdered in Uvalde, Texas, just last year. Did he say anything different then? And we knew then when he said it that he'd say it again. And right now, as of right now, he'll say it again on the next one. I'm glad that first responders came out and helped pick up more injured people and traumatized others that watched it happen. I look forward to seeing it yet again, because I'm not gonna do an absolute damn thing about it. In fact, there's something he did do to make it worse. This should always be reported upon, because he has more blood on his hands from this event. Texas mass shootings are up 62.5% since the permitless carry bill was passed. This was reported in September of last year. Here's some details, because just over a year ago, that's before September 8th of last year, Governor Greg Abbott signed a law making it legal for anyone in Texas over the age of 21 to openly carry a gun in public without a permit or a license. And since then, the number of mass shootings has risen by that 62.5%. Here's a little bit more details on those numbers. From June 13th of 20 to June 13th of 21, when Abbott signed that permitless carry law, Texas had 40 mass shootings. In that same time period, from 21 to 22, the number of mass shootings rose to 65. And one other piece that I read in that article, the number of people that have been murdered in those mass shootings that has risen from 40 to 65 has doubled. So we've got more mass shootings, but even more devastating, the number of people killed in these mass shootings has increased even more by 100%. And they tell everyone to move down to Texas, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of bleak here, right? You know, we were just speaking about cause and effect in the last story, but why would Governor Abbott want to do anything about any of this, right? Abbott is such a disgrace, but the fact that he got reelected in the last election cycle, especially after the disastrous failure of the electrical grid in 2021, and especially after the Robb Elementary massacre in Uvalde, it's all just reassurance to him that he can be completely ineffective as a leader and get away with it, right? There's no reason for him to be or do any better. Texans had the opportunity to hold him accountable for his actions, or rather his inactions, I should say, but we weren't able to do so, right? On top of that, he's pretty well insulated in Texas. We have an overwhelmingly red state legislature. So it's actually very difficult for Democrats to penetrate that red bubble. And every time they get reelected, they make it even more difficult for the Democrats. And I will give you an example. Today, actually, I read that the Texas Republicans introduced a bill that would block voting sites from college and university campuses. Of course, college and university students tend to vote Democrat rather than Republican. So these are the things that our state government is worried about instead of things like what they should be worried about.
And you know what? Maybe that's the way that they've gotten enough people to continue to vote for them. They said, we're gonna stick it to the libs. And then enough people said, yeah, stick it to the libs. And then me right afterwards.
Yeah.
It's constant. And
then they make it more difficult for the libs to actually vote. Yeah.
That's how these things work.